Hello, and welcome to Friends for Life, a podcast of the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod's Life Ministry. We're sharing the stories and insights of real people living out God's love for the people He's created. We hope you'll stick around and be our friends for life.
Thanks so much for joining us. I'm your host, Stephanie Jabauer, here with my guests, Dr. Tim and Rebekah Janke. For all of our faithful listeners, these names might sound familiar, as Tim and Rebekah were both guests early on in Friends for Life in episode 7. And now it's been almost exactly 2 years. We have the pleasure of welcoming them back to learn how their story has unfolded and continues to unfold on their journey to adoption. So, Tim and Rebekah, I brought you back on because, number one, you're my dear friends, and I'm personally invested in your story, and I think it's a story worth sharing. But two, because your story does not carry on as we would expect. It has a lot of twists and turns and a plot line that you wouldn't have anticipated when you started. Yours is a story of both hope and hurt. It's a story of anticipation and disappointment, all of those intertwined. It's not all rosy, it's not all good feels, but you are here to tell us about a God who has been faithful with you through it all. For those who are new to our show, would you please start by introducing yourselves?
We are Tim and Rebekah. We live in North Dakota. Tim is a veterinarian and I am a teacher. We have one son. His name is Elijah, and he turns 5 in a couple weeks.
Yep.
So Tim and Rebekah, for those who didn't get a chance to listen to our very first episode together, can you just give us a window into your world? What was that first year of your adoption journey like?
We started our adoption journey in October or November of 2020. When we started, there's a lot of different routes to adoption, but we chose to work with consultants. So we started that, and when we could actually start presenting to families was probably like 4 months later after we had our home study done. A lot of different things that we had to get done before we could present to families. So that was early on in 21. We saw a lot of different cases. When you work with consultants, you see cases. So we learned a lot about what potential birth moms might be experiencing. We saw a lot of different stories. What we presented to like 150 somewhere in there moms.
Yeah, so just backing up a little bit, when we first started, so the home study was our biggest kind of first hurdle to get over. That in and of itself was, a 4-month journey of gathering a bunch of documents and filling out a bunch of paperwork and a bunch of meetings with your social worker. Way less about your house and more about who you are as a person, who you are as a family, making sure that you're ready to start this adoption journey and making sure just that everything is, as ready as you can be for it. Then after that home study, then we went, when we went active and started seeing cases there.
Yeah, another hurdle while we were seeing cases was just the cost of adoption. Well, we looked at a lot of different fundraising options and applied for a number of grants, and we ended up fundraising with both hands. So I think we were just about to do that, or we were just in the midst of that the last time we talked.
Yes.
So we did a service project at a widow's home, and at the same time sent out pledge letters.
Yep.
I'm not sure, is that what they're called? And we were just so blessed through that experience. It was really like one of the mountaintops of our journey.
Yep. We
had 60
people
at her house that day, and it was just awesome to see all of our people kind of surround us in love through that fundraiser.
Yeah, to have all, that many people show up in a very tangible, real way to show their support for your journey and in your life, and to see that kind of community and, connectivity, and to see that many people get brought into, to your adoption journey was, still when you think back a couple years later, is just so cool and such a blessing to have done that. Like, it was amazing, absolutely amazing to see.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we were really financially blessed.
Very
too,
financially
through that
blessed through it.
fundraiser.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
We continued seeing cases after that, and
Saw 1 to 5 cases a week, I'd say, and presented to almost every case that we got presented with, we presented to, and then just rode that journey of waiting to match, basically.
yeah, basically adoption is a whole bunch of waiting.
Waiting.
That's probably something you expected, but not this extent of waiting.
No, when we first started, the average time to match was, still, I don't remember the exact number, but still in the, calculating in the months range, not years. So we were definitely a little bit on the slow side to match. And yeah, so that was a long kind of arduous journey.
We were on the
to
phone
finally
with our
match.
consultant one time, and I asked, are we an outlier, or is this how it always goes? And she said, no, you're an outlier.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then when it's taking so long, you kind of wonder, okay, so is there something specific that, there has to be a why, So what's the reason why? Is there anything we can do differently, or is it just our time hasn't come and, we just need to keep on with the journey? And yeah, it was just putting your faith in the Lord, and just, this is our journey, and it just wasn't our time. It wasn't that we were doing anything wrong. We just hadn't been presented with our case that we were supposed to match with yet. So
how long did it take for you to finally match?
Well, kind of a spoiler alert, we matched the first time in November. August. Yep, sorry, August of 22.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How long were you presenting and then seeing cases before you matched?
Nearly 2 years.
Just about 2 years. Yep.
Okay, so you were expecting a matter of months, and it ended up taking 2 years to match.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. Yep,
yes.
Correct. That journey, though, looking back, especially for me, we kind of talked in the first podcast about just the emotional roller coaster of adoption, and being presented with all of these, these stories from each of these, potential birth moms, was something that really took me a while to come to grips with. So during that whole process was actually kind of a growth period for both of us, where yes, it was taking way longer, but you also got to kind of mature your feelings through the adoption process. And, it gave us time just to process, again, all the emotions that come with adoption, which was one of, kind of the blessings of waiting that long, looking back on it.
How did it change you just reading everybody's story? Because it's my understanding that when you read cases, you actually get a pretty thorough peek into the situation that's going on with the pregnant mother, her needs, the potential needs of the baby that she's carrying.
Mm-hmm.
What does that do to you?
You get presented with some pretty intimate details about their life, stuff that, they might not share with even some of their closest friends. Kind of a deal. So, taking that in it was hard not to take that in as your own burden, to share. When you see 150 cases like that, you can't take them all on as your own burden. That just, weighs you down so much. But it really shows and grows that birth mom empathy. I think that's one of such a huge part of the journey. And that's one thing that grew exponentially with us for seeing that many cases, is just what potential birth moms, have gone through. And it's not like, oh, they're just giving up their baby and willing it. It is a struggle and a huge emotional, burden too.
That's something that's kind of unique to working with consultants, that you get to see those kinds of details.
Yeah.
That you don't necessarily see that on other
Yeah.
roads to adoption. And yeah, that birth mom empathy that has been built within us is, I love that we chose consultants just for that.
Yeah.
That we can kind of understand a little bit more the struggles and the challenges.
That the other side goes through. You're not just seeing it from your point of view, you're also experiencing it a little bit. It's still not the same as walking in their shoes, but you at least get a little bit deeper glimpse into their journey's like as well in their adoption journey.
Is it kind of like you make a connection almost every time with that case because it's potentially your child? I mean, that mom might be carrying your baby.
Yep.
Like you can't help it almost, even if you probably try.
Yep.
Is that what you felt?
There were times when anxiety was pretty high where we had to talk about, like, we need to disconnect a little bit from these cases, and we will be all in when we match. Yep. But there were times when we had to talk about, like, we need to distance ourselves just a little bit because anxiety was a little bit too high.
Yeah. Well, and every time you say yes to a case, you start to envision, okay, so if she says yes and we match with her, what would life look like with that particular case, that particular birth mom, that particular infant? And then when you have 5 of those cases at the same time and your brain's trying to process all of them, and it was a struggle to try to stay a little bit more disconnected during that process. And then we had many conversations about when we match, then you're all in. Until we match, yes, you still have to process, but you gotta pull back a little bit there, just because your brain and your emotions can't handle all of that. At least for us, they couldn't.
I can't imagine. I think for any normal person, that would be the case.
Yeah.
So you matched in August 2022, so that was a little over a year ago at the time of this recording. Then tell us what happened next.
We knew at that point that we were going to match with a baby boy. So baby boy's mom and us started connecting. We had some phone calls, some text messages. When we found out we matched, we initially were one of 2 families that she was deciding between. So we actually found out in the middle of church. and after
you had
church,
your phone on you in church?
It's this watch that buzzes on my wrist. Yeah. And our consultant's name popped up and her name never pops up.
She just looked at me and showed me her watch, and I just looked at her and we both started crying, and I kissed her forehead and we hugged. It was in the middle of singing this song. I'm sure people around us were like, what are they doing?
How fast can we make an exit right now?
Yeah, exactly. But we scheduled an initial kind of phone call with her, just kind of a meet and greet type of a phone call, and then we found out the next day that we matched. And after that point we had contact information and started trying to build a relationship with her. Everything seemed to be going very smooth initially, and seemed like we were building a relationship, and then kind of really slowly she just started pulling back a little bit, and we a little bit longer to respond to text messages, a little bit shorter with communication. Just we kind of questioned for quite a while, could she be questioning her decision if this route adoption was the right route for her. And that was kind of a slow fade with that particular match. We had a phone call as well near the end of that match with
adoption agent.
Yeah. And she also was, we kind of talked about some red flags that she was seeing also, and she kind of had the same feelings. And she asked us at that point, do you guys want to break the match? Well, we talked about once we match, we're all in. We weren't going to be the ones we don't know what's going on in her head, Maybe she needed to pull back a little bit and process some more emotions. So we kept on keeping on for a little while, and then it became very obvious that she had kind of changed her mind. And then our match ended. So
how was that news broken to you?
It wasn't really an all of a sudden thing. We saw that it was coming.
Yeah.
She
kind of birth mom initially kind of broke ties with us, but was still communicating with the adoption agency. And then she pretty much stopped communicating with the adoption agency too, and just stopped all contact. So we never officially heard from her per se, I want to parent or what, her plan was, but she pretty much just broke all communication. Then officially the adoption agent called us and said, yeah, this is over. We need to move on.
How much time was there between your initial contact with her and then when you learned that you kind of were starting back at square one?
Yeah, that was in November.
Yeah, for 2 months.
Yeah, November of 22.
And in that time, like in our home, we were preparing to have
the
a
whole time.
baby boy, you know,
Mm-hmm.
like we set up our room as a nursery with a crib and
Yep.
had clothes washed, and our son Elijah knew that he had a baby brother coming.
Yeah.
So
Pray for birth mom and baby brother every
Yeah.
every night, and like we were very again all in on the journey. So even though it was kind of a slow fade where you kind of saw it coming and it wasn't a huge surprise, it still was a loss. It hurt to, okay, well, now we're back at square one. It took us almost 2 years to match the first time. Is it going to take us another 2 years, or how long will it be, to match again? So back into seeing active cases and going back into things.
Mm-hmm.
How did you handle that as a couple? Were there moments of like sheer despair, depression? Where were you in your head and your heart?
It made it a little bit easier, just the fact that it didn't come out of the blue. And so, during that time of things pulling back, you kind of were starting to prepare yourself that this might happen. So it wasn't like a complete shock. But still, like at one point we were, both kind of, I'm sure we were both crying, and Rebekah's like, why does this have to be so hard? Like we just want to grow our family, and
at that point we'd been married 9 years,
9 years,
and we'd been
trying to grow our family for 8 of those 9 years, and
it's different than like a miscarriage,
Yeah.
like there's not a child, like a child hasn't died.
Yeah.
So really it was just loss for us.
Yeah.
The mom was spared from, a certain amount of loss, and the child was spared from loss. So
Mhm.
it's different than a death.
Yeah. Way different.
Like we were sad. We also, along this journey, we've had no control
Yeah.
during any part of this journey. We didn't have control over that. We were sad. Like I'm not saying that it was okay, well we'll just move on. Like we were sad, but it's just the way it was.
Yeah, having had some miscarriages, it is very, very different from that fact, because again, a child didn't lose its life. The child is going to be parented by his biological parents, and we lost the opportunity to parent that child, but that child is still going to be blessed with their life and everything, so that side of things, also makes it a little bit easier. Easier is probably not the right word to say, but a little bit easier just to cope with that, Yeah.
God in his mercy, in those, some 2 years that you were waiting to be matched, you said that you grew in empathy for the birth mom, and, in a way he, looking back, prepared your hearts for a love for this mom and this baby that was outside of what consequence it would be to you in a way. Thanks be to God for that, and for you guys as a couple growing in wisdom and maturity in that regard too. Then where did you go from there? What happened afterwards? And in a sense, you don't start from scratch, because you've already gone through the house studies and gone with the caseworkers and all of the documentation. But now you're starting to see cases again, and you're presenting to families again. That was about a year ago, right? So what's happened in that year?
Yeah, we went back to presenting to cases. We pretty much went back right away. As we said, it was kind of a slow end. So
they asked us if, like, do you guys want to take some time to think about where you want to go, or do you want to just start seeing cases again? And we both just kind of, we had already kind of been preparing ourselves, so let's just start seeing cases again. So back at it.
Yeah, that was a little bit confusing for Elijah,
Yeah.
our son, because he was ready for baby boy, and now we're waiting again.
Yeah. Like nothing is physical that he can see. It's all emotions, and it's all talk about the future, and trying to get a 4-year-old to grasp the fact that we were going to adopt baby brother, but now baby brother won't be part of our household anymore. And that was a little bit of kind of a hard avenue to navigate with him. And mostly it was just being repetitive and validating emotions, because he was feeling lost too, and he was feeling emotions, and trying to get him to understand those emotions.
Well, he lost his dog at the same time,
Yeah.
too. He
Yeah.
had a dog die.
Yeah.
And so he experienced a lot
Yeah.
of loss last fall.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
a
It
lot
was-
of validating emotions.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, yeah, so we were seeing cases, and then in March of 23, so 4 months after that
Yep.
failed match, we were presenting to only one case at the time on the day that my phone buzzed on my wrist again, or my watch.
Were you in church?
No,
No.
I was at school. I was working at school in between some meetings with teachers, and our consultant's name popped up again, and I knew that the only case we had was with a mom who was expecting twins. So,
Twins.
yeah. So I answered the call, and she, said that, okay, so there was actually another case where the mom wanted to talk with us, and she was deciding between two
That's
families.
right. I forgot
and
about that.
Yeah. So I thought that's kind of just what they always did, kind of narrowed it down to 2 or 3 families and talked with them. But anyways, the consultant said that this mom had chosen us. So it wasn't like she's deciding between different families. It was just that she picked us. So that was really exciting. So after I got off the phone with her, I called Tim at work.
I was in the middle of like writing up a record, and she calls me, and she never calls me at work. And I knew also we were only presenting with one case. I was like, hello? Why are you calling me? And then she told me to. Yeah, it was great.
And then what did you do?
Oh, I'm sure I started crying. Fist pumped and started crying.
At least you were performing some surgery on an animal at the time,
exactly.
It was
just-
paperwork.
Yeah, just on the computer. Yeah.
Through this process, we have learned that Tim is the crier.
I'm a crier. I'm a softie. Yeah. One of the texts is like, yeah, suddenly you got a phone call, you fist pumped and you started crying. But then they made some spoof comment or comment about how, although you kind of start crying a lot. So yeah. Through this journey, I have started crying a lot.
We're emotionally stable, don't worry.
Oh, yeah, very.
At this moment, I can attest to that at least. I mean, you guys are doing good.
Yeah.
So you matched in March 2023
Mm-hmm.
with
Yep.
a mom with twins.
Twins.
It's not 1, it's 2. What does that
Yeah.
feel like?
So exciting.
Mhm.
Like Psalm 23, my cup overflows is what it feels like.
Yeah.
We're so excited. And at first, like we pretty much shared right away, that we matched with twins. People, like their first reaction would be like, oh my, you're going to be so busy. How are you going to handle that? And we that never even crossed our
Yeah.
mind. We were just like excited.
Yeah.
We're like, oh, we're not worried. It'll be fine.
I'll figure it out.
Now that you've had more time to process, are you more worried or are you still like, we'll figure this out?
No.
That's
not
honestly
worried.
kind of the way it's been throughout, our entire marriage and everything, well, just like with anybody's marriage is not one constant, and there's always changes and there's always flexes in your family and your family dynamic, and it's just, you just got to figure it out. So this is just another one of those things that we just are going to just figure out, and figure out what works best for our family. We
have read books.
We read quite a few books. And
and listen to podcasts.
yeah,
It's not like we're not.
yeah,
prepared.
completely naive. Oh, it'll be fine. All butterflies and roses. One of the books Rebekah read, the author's like, get them on the same schedule or you will die. Okay, good to know.
There's got to be a balance there, right? I mean,
No sugarcoating that one.
realistic expectations without being terrified that this will put an end to you.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
We have learned to get a stroller that carries 2 babies, accept help from people, and get them on the same schedule. That's what we've learned. There you go.
I think that's a pretty good line for any parent, really. Get a stroller for 2 babies. One for the diaper bag, right? Like one seat for the diaper bag, the other seat for the baby.
Yeah.
So you are continuing on this journey with this mom who's expecting twins. You guys are still matched and things are going smoothly. Have they always gone smoothly? What's it been like to build a relationship with a birth mom again? And what's it like caring for a mom who's expecting twins?
It has been kind of a little bit of a shift there. I felt more anxiety with our first match, actually. Are we communicating too much? Are we communicating too little? Where do we need to go? Like all of that. And with this birth mom, it's been easy, and it's been really pleasant and really nice. We've talked on the phone, we text quite a bit. We've gone down and visited her twice, just to again try to build that relationship. Once with Elijah, once without Elijah. Our first time we traveled without Elijah. It's been a very smooth, very pleasant process. We feel very blessed through it.
Yeah. We're all in.
Mm-hmm.
Like we said
Yep.
we would be when we matched.
Yep.
So, I don't know. The worst that could happen, I guess we've already done that. So,
Yeah.
so it'll be fine.
Yeah.
There's comfort in that. There's some peace in that. You've been through it, and it's made you stronger. I can see that just by being your friends. So, twins, do you know the genders?
We did find out initially when we matched, we did not know, but we have found out genders. We're both girls.
They're both girls.
So, both
They're
girls.
fraternal twins.
Yeah.
So that must be a shock for Elijah. Like,
Yeah.
whoa,
Yeah. Yeah.
not one but two girls.
Yeah.
The first thing he said when I told him was, "Oh, I wanted a boy."
Yeah.
Bless
Well-
him.
Like, well, shucks.
We have a little video from him too, and when we first told him, like, buddy, we're gonna have twins, and he's like, oh, twins? He's like, Dad, you get all the poopy diapers, I'll get the pee diapers. Yeah, like, deal, buddy, you can have all the pee diapers.
I actually think that feels pretty fair because if you think about the ratio, I mean, he'll be doing more diapers than
That's true.
you will.
Exactly.
It's a good deal for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And when are the girls due?
They're due October 1st.
So that's just about 2 months away from where
Yeah.
we are now, 2 or 3.
And that's their 40-week due date. I mean, at this point, potentially we could be getting a phone call any day, but we're hoping, obviously, not this soon, and we're hoping for a little bit longer into pregnancy.
Keep growing, babies.
Exactly. Yep.
And then what's the plan for when they're set to arrive? What's going to go down, do you think?
So when she has them, we'll get a phone call that she's in labor and it's happening, unless something's scheduled ahead of time, I guess. And so then we'll travel down there, all 3 of us.
Yep.
And my dad's meeting us there, which is wonderful.
Yep. Yeah, her dad's able to take some time off, and he's going to help with Elijah, just because we'll be obviously preoccupied with infants and caring for birth mom as well in the hospital and everything.
But they're going to be on a
there's-
schedule, so
Yeah,
It'll be fine.
naturally. Yeah.
the same schedule.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yep.
We're down there. You're in the state where the infants are until the paperwork goes through. So it's illegal to leave the state until the paperwork goes through. So that time is roughly gonna be, give or take, 2 weeks. Might be longer, might be a little bit shorter than that. So we're kind of planning an extended stay until we can travel back home and then begin our journey of a family of 5 instead of a family of 3.
How wonderful. As you transition, what do you hope life will look like with Elijah and with his sisters? What are your hopes for the future?
Elijah's world will be rocked because he's really good at being an only child. He's had a lot of years of experience as an only child.
Yep.
We're really excited.
Really excited.
He's excited.
Mm-hmm.
And your plan is an open adoption, correct? So
Correct.
you
Yes.
hope to have continuing contact with the birth mother and the birth mother with the girls.
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Open adoption can look like a lot of different things, from pictures, written updates, phone calls, texts, visits. We've started to talk with the mom about what she's hoping for, and I think she's just not quite sure yet what she wants that to look like. So it's something that we will learn together with
Again,
her.
just like one of those fluid situations of life where we'll just, we'll kind of navigate those waters and figure out what that looks like. And that, I'm sure that relationship will very well could change throughout the years and throughout life, just depending on where everything's at. But very excited to be able to continue. We've built a pretty good relationship with her so far, and very excited to continue that relationship, and then to have the girls be able to have that relationship as well and that connection. That's very exciting to be able to have that opportunity.
Looking back from the vantage point you're at now, how do you both see God at work even in times of real pain and hurt? And how has this taught you about who he is?
One of the scriptures that is meaningful right now, I guess, is from Psalm 127. Unless the Lord builds the house, the builders labor in vain. Unless the Lord watches over the city, the guards stand watch in vain. We know that we don't have control, and we know that God does. Mm-hmm. And we know that our family is in his care. We've grown a lot in trusting God and his plans, and as we look back on life, we know that his plans are good, even when we don't understand them. So I think that has been a big growth point for us.
That just absolute trust and just giving up control too. Again, so much of this journey has been out of our control, and you can only do so much, and just putting your complete faith in it's going to work out the way that it's supposed to work out, and it's in his hands. I mean, has honestly been a major blessing and a major benefit to getting through all of the, the ups and downs and the struggles and the setbacks and everything there, just knowing that, okay, well, it's in your hands, Lord. I can only do so much. That's been a huge comfort and a huge reason, even though I cry all the time, why I've been so stable.
You can cry and be stable at the same time.
Exactly, yeah.
He has a lot of people in his hands through this process. Like, we're not the center of this process. No. Children are. So he's working out what's best for a lot of kids and their moms and adoptive families. So we know that we are a piece in that puzzle. Yep. Not the center of it.
Yep.
What do you think the adoption process has taught you about parenting that you may have not otherwise learned as fast without going through it?
I guess I think about children are a blessing, and they're really not ours. They're God's, and he's entrusting them to us in our time as parents and in their time as kids. So we're grateful that he's entrusted our son Elijah to us, and we're grateful for the girls that it looks like he'll entrust to our care. But really, they're not ours, they're his.
Mm-hmm. You could go throughout all of parenthood and not learn that lesson,
Speaking in kind of a little bit more matter-of-fact way, it's not that if you have no difficulty growing your family that you don't cherish your children. Obviously, children are a wonderful blessing. You have an instantaneous connection to all your children. But when it does take you such a long time and a struggle to grow, it just that side of things, of just how precious life is and how meaningful having the opportunity to parent a child is. It feels exponentially greater. Not that that's not present if you have no difficulty growing your family and you've never experienced a miscarriage or you've never had any of those things. That's not saying that you don't feel that, but that really has been profound in me. Just what a blessing it is to be able to have that opportunity.
Yes.
That is a kind of perspective that I think equates to wisdom, we pray in the Psalms that God would teach us to number our days, that we would gain a heart of wisdom, and through this process he has given you wisdom so that you have the perspective to cherish the gifts that he's given you, and that is no small gift that he gave you both. I thank you for being so open and honest with me and all of our listeners about your journey. I thank you for inviting us in. And I ask that our listeners would continue to pray for the Janke family, as this airs, and then continuing onward. And hopefully, Lord willing, we can have you on yet again to give us an update on how the scheduling's going. If you can, maintain that. And I pray you do. I think schedules are great. And I just think about you guys with twin girls, day one of you will sleep and you will sleep.
Yes.
Starting now.
Yeah. Hopefully they also read the manuscript. Yeah.
That's right. No, you are great parents. You're wise, and you are a gift to have on so that we can learn from you. So thank you for giving us another chance.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, we're
Stephanie.
glad to be here.
And I want to thank our listeners too for tuning in. If you liked what you heard, please leave us a review. And don't forget to click the follow or subscribe button so you don't miss out on upcoming episodes. New episodes drop twice each month. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook as Friends for Life LCMS. And finally, listeners, we want to hear from you. Do you have an idea about a guest you'd like to hear from or a topic you want talked about? Email us at friendsforlife@lcms.org. We want to hear from you about what you want to hear about when it comes to issues of life.
Thanks for joining us. Friends for Life is a podcast that introduces listeners to life issues by introducing them to friends who stand for life.